the chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's orchestrating, delegating, broadcasting, developing, or anything to do with Livepeer. We're here to ask questions and get answers. Today we got regular water cooler chat, so we'll start with introductions, and we'll hop right into it. So I'm Titan. I've been running the Titan Node Orchestrator since April 2021, and my topics today are the AV1 integration. So I want to follow up with that a little bit, and still trying to get Ivan on here, and so yeah, just wanted to follow up a little bit on the integration for that. I also wanted to talk about the broadcaster logs for what Tom was talking about in the Discord thread. Get some feedback on that, and then of course also the a continuation of the public goods funding conversation that we've been having for the last while. Also, Doug had made a post about it, so I think we can continue on that conversation. Okay, great. We'll move on. Pon, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pon. I've been running my own orchestrate for about just over a year now. I have no specific topic in mind, so I'll just be listening in.
Very good. Thank you for joining us. Frank, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure. Hi, I'm Frank. I'm running Ultima Node since 2 years now, and I have no topic tonight. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Papa Bear, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, sure. I am Papa Bear, and I run the Solar Farm Orchestrator, which has been up and running since July of 2021. I do have a topic today, kind of a technical question. I have had issues on and off with my LAX node where sometimes my streams, or the streams sent from Livepeer, end up going to other nodes. And I've tried using Amazon for geolocation and Cloudflare for geolocation. And it's an intermittent thing, so I can't really figure out what would be the reason that sometimes they just want to go to New York or to the Midwest. But if anyone's got any ideas, I would love to hear them when we get around to it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm very curious as to how you're tracking that as well. That's a really good topic, so we'll definitely jump into that. Thank you for joining us, Papa Bear, as always.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. Pablo, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yep. Hey guys, can you hear me properly?
Yes, I
think
can hear
so.
you great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Pablo. I'm a builder for in the space. I don't run an orchestrator, but yeah, been in the Livepeer community since 2019. And not really any topic. The AV1 discussion seems interesting. The public funding, I want to like give my opinion on that. And maybe if you guys are interested, I can maybe update you on what I've been working on. Yesterday we did a live stream for Avae using Livepeer, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, just hanging around. Thank you for having me.
Very cool. Thank you for joining us, Pablo. Great to have you back, and with better internet.
Yeah. This time I'm at home, so yeah.
Yes. You sound wonderful. The last time we spoke, you were choppy, but to be fair, all hackathons have shitty internet, so that's
yeah.
par for the course. Great to have you, Pablo. And I've invited Authority Null up 3 times, but he keeps rejecting me. I'm just going to keep inviting him up, though, because it's kind of fun to ignore, to make his thing go.
I think he's also in a Twitter space from an earlier conversation I had with him. But if you want to keep bugging him, go for it. What the hell? I'll be back in 1 second, guys. My doorbell just rang, so if I'll be right back. Don't start with me.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's yeah, okay. Well, we'll start with the topic, a couple of topics I brought up, and we'll move into them. So, I want to give a quick update on the AV1 integration stuff. I reached out to Ivan. Ivan was a previous core dev who did a lot of the AV1, or I guess the other integrations. And he basically said, well, he's not with the team anymore, so he can't give you the latest and greatest information. And I asked him, well, that's fine. I'm sure nothing really has changed since you've left. So even though he's not with the core team, if he would mind coming on and at least just giving us his thoughts about the style of integrating it or all these types of things. So like I said, I've been pretty busy traveling around the UK for the last little bit here, so I haven't reached out to him very much. I reached out to him yesterday and he hasn't replied yet, so I couldn't get him on for this water cooler. So hopefully in the next one. At one point, I really would like to get him on because he might have some key insights onto the difficulty at which AV1 might be. And then I think the community has expressed that I think AV1 is going to be a pretty big deal, and we should probably move as quickly as possible to integrating it. So that's the latest update on that. Does anyone have any other comments on AV1, what they're seeing in the industry, or anything to do with that topic? I know, Pablo, you said something that you might want to add to it.
I mean, I can just add. I mean, I've just been seeing more and more adoption of it on different platforms that are supporting it, and the fact that OBS supports it makes a pretty strong use case, I think, for having it. I personally would like to see more than just AV1, but like start to see, because I think one of the main one of the issues with Livepeer in particular is just the not being able to support other hardware codecs too. Like, it would be nice to, even if I don't have AMD cards, but it would be nice to support that. It's definitely nice to support the Intel cards. So I'd like to see if updating to a different version of MPEG or FFmpeg would allow some of that other options for not just AV1 but just more hardware support.
Yeah, I think just having a modular thing where we can quickly upgrade FFmpeg is pretty important. It's weird that we have a hard-coded version from a long time ago that we can't seem to easily just hit the update button, right? So we'll have to figure out the complexities on that. The problem is the FFmpeg integration is far over my head, so I'm not going to be able to lead anything when it comes to the charge on that. So I guess my job is to push people to do that, or at least keep bringing it up until someone who's smarter than me can do it. So
yeah, and I'm in the same position as you. I don't have the technical knowledge on how hard that is. I mean, I know it's not simple because it hasn't happened, and the people I've talked to that do understand it better have explained that it's very tightly integrated into a lot of the way Livepeer was originally built. But it does seem to be holding Livepeer back in certain areas, and I think that will just continue to compound over time if it doesn't get separated out. Which, even being a big haul to get done, I still think it's at some point it's going to have to get done. So let's go for sooner rather than later, right?
Definitely. Cool. So yeah, still going to try to get Ivan on and those kind of things. The next topic I want to talk about is the broadcaster logs. I don't know if you guys saw the thread about Tom, who wants to continue on with I think what is called the introspection upgrade or whatever. Basically more transparency and more information about the network and how things are running. And so I put out this idea of just adding a method to, actually I think it was Doug who mentioned like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could just open up all the logs and just let everyone see them and let it be queryable so we can just, see the logs and determine for ourselves what's happening. There came to be two problems with that. One was security and sensitive information. You don't want your broadcaster node to be publicly spitting out information. Maybe it could be sensitive. And the other thing was that doesn't give us enough data. Like when I was running broadcaster nodes, like it gives you data about the stream, but it doesn't give you any data about the selection process. It doesn't tell you why somebody was chosen, right? There's no
Yeah,
logs for
that's
that.
like that's the biggie right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So
what I want to know.
so luckily, I came up with this idea, like, okay, well, why don't we just create a new method where it's just for these specific logs, and then the community can go in and comb through all the points that we want to add, all the lines, all the detail of where we want logs to happen. And we can now cherry pick from a community standpoint, like how much, because we're the ones that care about this. The broadcaster doesn't really care about this. It's the community of orchestrators that care. And so now we get to really dive into the algorithm and say, okay, did this person get selected based on stake? Did this person get selected based on a 30% randomness score? Did this person get not selected because their previous real time was too slow? So now we can like go in and add all these logs. Like we can really start dumping a lot of information out about every single stream that comes in, why it chose someone, why it didn't choose someone, and publish those publicly, right? And it will be safe because there won't be any sensitive data, because it'll be strictly for these logs. So we can go in and build them the way we want them, and we can write them the way we want to write them, rather than just somebody who's not familiar with the orchestrator side who says something like, "Yeah, Papa Bear was selected." It's like, okay, well, that's a good bit of information, but Papa Bear was selected. Skipping, we can say, well, the algorithm skipped the it skipped the randomness factor. It skipped the response factor, and it's picking Papa Bear strictly because his previous real time, based on his verified stream of the last one, was good enough, and that's why you're choosing this. Like we can really log out exactly what's happening, right? So I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for us orchestrators to get some critical feedback. Does that sound nice?
Yeah, so you're saying that you'd like to be able to have all that data go where, and then what would we as a community do with it? Like how would we, and then us as a community would like make it into some sort of a readable format, an
So
easy to read format?
the logs get ported. I don't. It goes into. Well, this was the discussion actually in the introspection thing. Is the last comment from Tom was, any thoughts on preferences of where this logging gets written to, right? So do we want to stand up a Loki instance, but might be good opportunity to play around with something more decentralized? So I'm not familiar with Loki. I'm assuming it's a logging thing that you can search logs. I know Mike Zuper set up a tutorial
Yeah,
on how to use it.
that's a pretty like I mean I don't use it, but that's a pretty good description of what it does. It makes it log searchable and store. I mean I don't know how it stores them, but yeah, they're I mean I've used other people's that have it set up, so um, I um, I know that you can search through the logs for specific things. I don't know without any knowledge or without maybe there's some preset queries that we can set up that make it easier to use to find the stuff that you're looking for, because it really just kind of just makes the logs searchable, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really put it into just a
Well,
super easy to read format without putting in a good query.
well, this is what we get to decide as a community. We can go into the logs that we want to, for the logs to output, and we can build out the logs to reference. Maybe for Papa Bear's node, we're gonna base everything off of your ETH address. So we're gonna say, you know, ETH address got this stream for this and that reason, and ETH address didn't get this stream because of X, Y, and Z, and you know, and so then you can basically just search your ETH address, and you're gonna be able to find all the points at which you're mentioned, right? Because if we're gonna be grabbing this much information, there's gonna be lots of logs, right? It's gonna be quite extensive. So yeah, we get to decide what gets printed. And so the logs, we want to make it so that we're printing them in a nice format, and then Loki can search them based on regular things that we're familiar with. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I wish we had someone on the call who actually uses Loki. Mike's here. Mike,
Mike, are you with us?
Can you speak, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here. What's up?
So, yeah, go ahead, Pablo.
Oh, I was going to probably just do the same thing you were going to do, but you'd probably can say it without as much stuttering as I would put into it. So I'll let you tell them what we were just talking about.
Sure. I don't know. Have you used Loki before, Mike? I assume you do.
Oh yeah.
So, can you tell us what it does and how we would build logs around using it effectively?
And specifically for like looking at like the selection algorithm and being able to make sense out of like why an orchestrator was picked, why maybe it wasn't picked, or what like how would Loki be a good tool?
So yeah, if you want to, like Prometheus, you point your Grafana to it and you can scrape metrics. Well, the log data, the log files, and all that stuff that you scrape from Loki, you can query. So, I mean, it really is, but it's log data, not metrics of a given thing. So, like each log file or quote job, Prometheus job, you can bucket these log data in. Now you can get really advanced with it as well. But I think some of the stuff we did was Speedy and we created like a block watcher logging monitor, if you will, or a dashboard. And all it did is it will look at all the logs and say, oh, for block watcher start and end time, it wanted to keep track of where you were. So it just used that log data to create a dashboard. And you can do the same thing. And I think I hear you guys saying like you want to be able to capture, like your ETH address and like whether you got the stream or didn't get the stream. Like you can start to collect that data in dashboards, and there's visuals you can add, just like you would with Prometheus, but you could do the same thing with logs, where you could scrape the logs and look for your ETH address, and then you can start counters, or you can, show certain data points over time, like, this day you were selected, and this day you weren't selected, you know what I mean? Like you can really get into some really advanced stuff. But some of it though is dependent on, like, they have this tool called Promtail, and basically it's like an agent that sits on each server that you want to grab log data from. So like it wouldn't just always send like raw log data. That sometimes there's some massaging, or like you want to label it, or filter it in some way. You want to do that stuff on the server. So doing Loki it's probably it's a lot of data, a lot of log data, a lot of network traffic. If they're willing to spin that up, that would be probably the most enterprise ready way to try to massage and make sense out of the logs. But that's not simple infrastructure. I mean, you can set it up in a simple way, but with a bunch of nodes and a bunch of people trying to query it, it can get very busy quickly.
Do we know how Livepeer? I mean, do they have this data in a format now that they use internally where they can look at this stuff? I mean, do we know what they're using if they do have this set up? Where can
Well,
they
how
look
could
at
they, right? Like if you look at Go
how
Livepeer, there's no log data and there's no like metric data around selection algorithms. So how could they get anything?
No, but I think what he's saying, for other things, like of course there's no selection data right now, but we as a community are going to add that. But right now, surely like Livepeer Inc. uses Loki or some sort of logging system for just the regular broadcaster logs, right?
Oh, I thought they mentioned Splunk. I think if I'm not mistaken, Doug mentioned Splunk. Splunk is an enterprise product. It's a service that is like Loki, but it's a paid service. So they have a Splunk. They call it Splunk. That's the name of the product. And again, it's the same concept, right? It's an agent that exists on your server. It pipes all the log data out, maybe massage it a little bit, format it, filter it, etc., and then it pumps it all into this Splunk dashboards, and then you can put up like cool looking visuals. I don't know if they would open that up to the public or not, but I thought they had Splunk.
Well, if Tom is the one who's clearly building this, and he mentioned Loki, so I have a feeling he's familiar with Loki. So I guess his question was, we can use Loki, which is going to be um, a central, like Livepeer Inc.'s Loki is, we're going to be querying Livepeer Inc.'s database for information. Now, do we want to do that, or do we want to build this in some sort of decentralized way? And I think he was just in mind of the Web3 thing. So the question is,
Wow.
but the problem is that the logs where they're coming from are already centralized. Like there's really, there's no reason to decentralize something that starts off centrally, right? So like he might as well just spit up a Loki instance or whatever and just let us query
Well,
the
that's why I
logs.
asked them. Do you want low hanging fruit, right, or do you want something a bit more, thought out in advance? And I think he was looking for something quick that we can get out there, quick wins, and do it. So to even entertain a Web3, instrumentation, log collection, storage, like that just adds so much, like stitching and gluing these protocols together that it might even be impossible or difficult at this point. So Loki, if they can spin something up in existing hardware, use existing device, like it's at a cost in which they can manage, and it's not that difficult, then I would say let's just get let's get the insight first and then see. You know what I mean? Like if it needs to be Web3, great, but maybe that's not what needs to happen right now. Let's just get some log data, and if you can add the selection algorithm data into the logs, and we can just see that goes a hell of a long way.
Yeah,
Or more importantly, like errors. Like I want to know, is the broadcaster rejecting me for a reason? You know what I mean? If there's some reason that I'm not getting, like maybe I did get selected, but something's wrong with my rig or my setup. You know what I mean? Like maybe I want to see that too. You know what I mean? Because people are tweaking and optimizing, and if the broadcaster's throwing up, maybe Cloudflare's having an issue. Maybe I want to know that. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole lot of things that I want to see in that log if the broadcaster is going to be queryable. So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for the delivery of the logs, like I wouldn't even care if it's just like a pruned static 1 GB log file that you just download when you want it, like or something like this. I don't know if that's even
Yeah.
like I don't need I don't need like a big visualizer. Like
Yeah, that's true.
I just control F and search, like if I lose a stream, I have the manifest ID. You just search the manifest ID and then it'll be like, yo, this is where it started. You got, Mike Zuper got this stream manifest ID this time based on stake weighted selection because he was in the top 8 of people who had their previous score above real time and is currently verified. Blah blah blah, right? Like all this data, all this
Yeah.
stuff. You just
I think the
could,
simplest thing is if you could just post it on an FTP site or post it
yeah,
on a website where anyone
yeah,
can just download. Because
yeah,
then I'll just download it and load it in the Loki, my Loki instance, and
yeah,
I'll just query it that way. You know what I
be,
mean? Like
yeah,
whatever. You can just pull it in and grab it. That's fine.
because we're
Simple
also,
and easy.
yeah, and we're also gonna have 7 broadcaster nodes. So another question is, do we want these broadcaster nodes to serve up one log file, or do we want to have the broadcaster nodes just serving up their own nodes and then we go around and collect them all, right? So like,
Well, I think at a minimum they should like, again, these are all in different regions stuff, right? Like I would hope that they could at least collect the logs from all their servers and put it on a place that we could all just go look at, like download. Like at a minimum, I would think that they could build out something that at least aggregates their logs in a place in which we could all pull them down. And again, it could be some retention policy or some quotas on it to say, don't store, only keep, a week's worth of logs, and if you don't query it and grab your data by then, it's going to get thrown out. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But at a basic level, I think a file sharing approach should be something that Inc. would put together, in which they would pull the logs from each node and put it somewhere that we could all just go grab them. If it's as basic as an FTP site
honestly,
or a website.
I couldn't agree more. I think they should just have an FTP site where all.
Well, I don't want to say FTP because that could be like, that makes it a little harder. But if they could just put it, like, you can go to Livepeer Inc. /log/timestamp and it'll just give you a listing of the files you can download. I think that's probably sufficient, right? I don't know about FTP per se, but I mentioned that. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't have to be FTP.
I mean, I'd rather see it on a dashboard myself where I don't have to download anything, but that's just
Well, look, they're trying to get something quick up, right? Like something low hanging. I think Titan's saying this is probably the basic. Like if you could get this up and running right now, maybe that's phase 1, and then phase 2, spin up a Loki, right? And then take that log data and start ingesting it into Loki, and that might be good.
Loki has to be like set up, installed, massaged, right? Like it has to be maintained, right?
Yeah, well, we set up a grant and a tutorial for Livepeer orchestrators running multiple nodes, how to get set up with Loki and how to install it and get going. So I don't think that part's hard. I think to your point, is it's another set of systems that become part of their infrastructure that they're going to monitor and manage and, keep an eye on and all the other good stuff. Again, I think he offered it. So if he's willing to do that, then I think the file sharing probably would be, not needed if you can get to Loki right away. But again, we're trying to find a nice balance here, right? What can we do quickly? What could there be, useful? And I think probably to your point is it's better if you can get the Loki right now, and that way we can just start querying it. But if they can't, FTP download or whatever might at least be sufficient for now.
Let me ask you this, Zuper. Like on our video miner dashboard, like where it shows like the performance and stuff, and you can select the region and do all that. Is that done through Loki, or is that just more advanced Grafana stuff that I just don't know how to do?
I think there's a mix in there, and the mix is the logs that come out of Video Miner have been modified to include more performance metrics. So like every log line that we get out in Loki can query those log lines and start to do their calculations. So, but some of it is from like Prometheus data coming out of our O, but I think there's been a lot of stuff in Loki surrounding our custom logging that gives us the, additional, we have our T selection.
Right. Well,
so that's where a lot of that comes from.
No, that I understand. But the reason I'm asking is because, I can view that. I don't have Loki installed on anything. I can go to a web page and see it. So there's no learning curve, at least from
using a Grafana dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. I mean, I know that it's more work on Livepeer's end to get it up, but they did kind of even suggest setting up a Loki. So,
and Titan, just so you know,
that would be my preference is to lean towards something like that.
Yeah. If you log into Grafana, there's a data source, right? Prometheus is a data source. You add a Loki data source. I mean, that's how simple it is. So like once it's a data source inside of there, you can just go to the Explore tab and query it. So like it's that easy for Loki. And again, I'll drop a link to I did an office hours video where we walk through setting up Loki. And what I did in that video was we set the logging up so that the orc could send the logs to Loki. And then I went into the UI and did a query from there to say, hey, show me the logs. And then I was able to see the logs in the dashboard. Well, what I'll do is I'll pull up that video and I'll find the section that has that part of it in there. And I'll shoot it to this channel here and folks can go take a quick look at it. But it's really simple. And I think that's where Papa Bear, he got spoiled, right? Like we used to SSH the servers and look at logs and like you were saying, just do a control F and search through the logs in the servers. But with Loki and Portainer and some of these other things, now, we've gotten a little fat and lazy here. And we don't want to go to the servers anymore. We don't want to hit control F. We just want to go to a web page and hit a dashboard. And like Papa Bear is now even royal spoiled. He wants someone to write a visual for him. He doesn't even want to do a search in a Loki dashboard.
That's
I want
great.
that stuff pre-made and graphed out and easy
That's
to
right.
find.
And he
Yeah.
wants colors and flashy lights and all that good stuff.
So, okay, if Tom is offering a low-key solution, we should probably just let him run with it. So then he can also figure out just like where the data is going to be stored, and then he can just give us an endpoint, and away we go, right? So if he wants to build that out, so he's going to build out the method and the low key and the hosting of all this stuff. So that's great. And then it just comes down to us to build out the logs, right? So we get to go in the GitHub and go into the code and the selection algorithm and start printing out those logs that we want to see and the details of the logs that we want to have. So yeah, I think I'll put together. I know, I don't know who's familiar with the selection algorithm, where it is, and how it works.
I went through that at one point. I put this is probably more like 6 or 7 months ago now, but I went in and I added every single function, every single area where there was selection algorithms going on. I went in and put all kinds of logs in the broadcaster. I think I threw most of that code away, but I could at least, it was just me trying to troubleshoot on my end whenever O's weren't working or if I made changes. That's how the main reason why I spun up a broadcaster in the first place was to validate that my work is good. So, but by that, when I started seeing errors, I wasn't sure if it was the broadcaster or the orchestrator. So I was like, I need to put some more errors in the broadcast or logs in the broadcaster so I can see what's happening, because it's not a lot. Like you don't really get to see much at all, in fact. And I think there's zero in there around any of the selection algorithms or anything surrounding, the blockchain or any of that. There's no logging there.
In by default right now, from the
if you
from the
go look in a
broadcaster.
selection algorithm or any none
There's
of it
nothing.
has a
Yeah, of
single
course.
line of code.
So what I would like to do, so once Tom creates the method, we can go in there and just call the method and add the log of what we want it to spit out into this Loki, right? And we just pull request it right into their broadcasters.
Yeah, if they're gonna give you a way to get there and update it, then sure,
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I guess they're saying is you guys got to go figure out where in the code you want logs and what you actually want, and then put the PR up, and then they'll basically review it and make sure it finds its way in. Well, I mean, I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah. So Tom's gonna
They
build
build
out
it,
the
we code
method.
it.
Yeah, he's gonna build out the method and the hosting of the Loki, and then we as a community. So like Mike, if you've got some spare time and you want to go back through that, you can start maybe making some notes on like what lines we are what lines do what, and maybe commenting a little like, hey, like this is the point at which someone gets selected based on a 30% randomness. Okay, great. We that would be really useful. So we say Mike Zuper's or Zodap's ETH address. So maybe we'll address everything through the ETH address. So we'll go ETH address, got selected based on random 30%, disregarding, every other selection point. Okay, that's really useful to know, right?
Yeah.
And
Papa
then,
Bear, you and I went through this already, right? Like I remember you and I sitting on a video and I walking you through that code that we were talking about putting logs in. So it's definitely something we could probably carve out.
yeah, like just maybe go through there and comment on this one is based on who, so and I'm not too worried about bloat. Like maybe it's something like all 100, it goes, it sends out a ping request. Well, it would be nice to know that, hey, ETH address Zodap didn't respond quick enough, it timed out, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what
that's
I was
what I'd like
saying.
to see, the whole selection process. Like,
Yeah,
here's the
like
response times from all the from the responding orchestrators. Here's
so,
here's why this one was selected, and or I don't know what
so
other, I forget what other data is there,
Well,
but
again, you got to look at it. It's basically they're going to sort and filter the data to make a choice down to one person to get a stream. So like wherever you fall out of the filtering process or the sorting process, you just like to know what your ranking was. So like I think that to me is the value, right? Being able to just see the metrics that the code is using to make those decisions. A decision's made, here's a winner. Okay, here's the criteria that made that decision, right? Tell me that.
yeah, and then what'll happen though is if we've got 100 orchestrators, that means every new stream request is going to start with 100 lines of logs, right? And then it's going to break down into like maybe 20, because 20 will respond, and then maybe down to like 10, and then so by the time you end up with one selection, it could be something like 50 log lines for one selection. And if you can imagine, these broadcasters are probably spitting out, a stream. They're spitting out lots of streams all the time, right? So um, maybe you only get 24 hours of logs, because it could get pretty bulky pretty quick.
that
But
works for me.
I would
I'd
take it.
just like to be able to, yeah.
Yeah. I
Again,
don't.
I would stray away from a lot of the text. Like the more verbose your logs are, the more duplicate text that gets stored into the log files. Like you really want to keep it to metrics and like key indicators that point to a metric that you could parse in the logging system, because you can't do anything with text data unless you have like meaningful things that have thresholds that you could use in terms of calculations in the logging aggregating tool. So and I think the format and standards that we use for logging should also take into account, like one of the things that I know is going to be really wonky for most people is time zones, right? Like just dates themselves, like being able to correlate it to your node in that region. It seems straightforward, but it can be very difficult if time zones are different on your node versus their nodes. And so just some things to food for thought.
Well, Mike, maybe you probably have experience in this, like I don't, right? So maybe
Lots.
do you want to formulate a standard on how we can build these logs so that they're less verbose, more concise, and there's a bit of a standard around?
I would love to, but the I don't want to be a bottleneck for making decisions quickly. Like I think there's definitely places and pockets where I can help out, but what I don't want is to be the governing factor behind work getting done. Like I know folks are looking to move pretty quickly, and I definitely have some time, but I don't know if I have enough time to drive it to completion. But I'd be more than willing to partner with somebody, or maybe I could take it to a certain level and hand it off in a relay to someone else. You know what I mean? So I'd be more than willing to see how I could help there.
Yeah, well, I
I,
mean,
I mean, I don't want to like. It's not my place to volunteer Marco, but this is like Marco's. Like he gets this stuff better than anybody that I know. I mean, he cranks out Grafana,
Yeah,
Prometheus,
he's really good at
Loki
Grafana.
stuff. It's like
Yeah.
just faster and better than anyone I've seen. But again, I
And
can't.
he's the one that added
I
a
can't
lot of the
volunteer.
custom logging to our app too. So like he added custom logging, and he
He's why I'm so
also
spoiled. Yeah. No, I
added the
mean, he did,
dashboard data to read the log data. So I mean, if we could recruit Marco, that would definitely go a long way. But I definitely can, like I said, help out with log lines and where they are, and I could send some resources that also help educate how effective line logs can be used in tools like Splunk and Loki.
Well, maybe a good starting point is let's figure out all the lines where something important happens that we want to take control, and then just
Yep.
comment out what's happening, right? So maybe that would be like a really good starting point, and then
Yeah.
if
we
you've
can.
got time, Mike, at any point you want to ping me, I'm happy to go through it with you, and just give you my 2 cents on
Sure.
what you're finding.
Like
Maybe I'll do an office hours where we can I'll put an open channel out there and folks can pop
That
in
probably
and
be a
see
good
what we're
thing.
doing.
dude, I would
Yeah.
be so down to join in on that. Yeah, like just like start like just open up the repository and just start combing through code of like and then even just like I know Elite has a pretty good setup already where he can just run a broadcaster node right out of Visual Studio, and then I send him a stream and logs are popping out right away, and we just he can make a change and we can keep going. I'm sure you have something similar, Mike, but yeah, like
He's a bit more advanced than me in that regard. Like I haven't connected Visual Studio Code. He was supposed to give me a little demo and show me how to set it up, but I think he's a step ahead of me there. But
well,
I do have the same. I can build it and deploy it and test it. So I run a bunch of broadcasters. So I definitely can get logs to put it on my broadcaster, see what it looks like. I have Loki and all that too.
yeah, and then what the nice part about that is we can just start commenting that on the public repository, and then when say Marco wants to come in and like, okay, someone's commented on what's happening here, let me put in the actual method and the information that the method's going to that is going to log, right? And then so maybe
Sure.
he'll come up with a standard around like how maybe it could be most utilized or efficient, the most efficient. And then from there, whenever we do a pull request, I mean, ideally, Livepeer Inc. updates their broadcasters, and boom, we get that update, right? So I think this would help us out so much because there's so many times where, like, right now, I'm sitting at like 0 streams, and I'm like, I don't know why. Like, what? Like, have I done something wrong? Like, like it would be maybe I sent back a stream less than real time, and so now you know now I just get sent to the bottom of the barrel until I get randomly chosen, right? And so it'd be nice to know like, hey, this is important or something, So yeah, I'd be really. I think that this type of logging is going to be pretty important.
I can commiserate with you though, Titan. Like I've been going through a rough week with tickets and wins and all that. So like I constantly look back and say, damn it, did I change something? Did I mess something up? Like, why am I at 0 streams? Like, I should not be at 0. And again, it's just like it's maddening when you're trying to troubleshoot and you don't have all the insight you need to make choices.
And then I think this relates back to Papa Bear's topic, which was Papa Bear. What was your issue you're having? Different. It was going to the wrong node.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of my streams will just it only happens in LA. Will just go to a different region, and I can't figure it out. I saw that Varies was actually having that issue for a little bit when he started up in LA, but it's resolved it, and um, he says it. I see he's here now, but said that it was at least I guess he thinks it was a speed issue that he was having for some reason. He was instead of getting like 2 gigabit per second internet connection, he was getting 400 megabits. But I don't see how like that still seems like it would be fast enough, and I don't understand how that would even play a role in it. If it's I mean, I guess it depends on what type of geolocation you're using, but I've tried a couple different ones, and it's only intermittent so it's just a very strange thing that would happen, and I have good bandwidth, and the ping times are definitely longer to these other locations they're going to. So I'm just at a complete loss, and it's been going on for months. And the way I realized it with like test streams is I would look at like my LAX ones, and they come in at like a pretty even, like 0.23, 0.23, 0.22, and then it was like 0.52, 0.52, and I was like, okay, I can't really tell just from that. But then I was like, wait, this transcode time is the exact same transcode time I'm getting on machines that are at other locations that I just know that these transcode in, like the test streams in 0.10 second, and my local machine's doing 0.13 or something like that. So I was like, something here just seems off. They're taking longer to download, taking longer to upload, and their transcode time is faster. So I was like, then I just went and I looked, and I was like, oh, look, here it is in my logs. There is a stream that came from Los Angeles going to my Chicago node. So that's how I figured out what was happening. Because at first I thought, like, first, I guess my internet connection is just not very stable here. But that wasn't. I mean, maybe that has something to do with it, but I don't. I mean, it doesn't seem to be that that's the issue, because when they do go to LA, they're all very consistent. So I'm just yeah, I'm just very confused.
It would be nice to know if the node, when it's Papa Bear's ETH address, selected IP address, this one received a response from this IP address, and it's like,
Yeah, I was
oh
thinking that when we were talking about it. Yeah, so I
yeah,
that would be very helpful.
oh
Not that would help me really solve it, because I know what's going on as far as that goes, but I still don't know how to resolve that. But it still would be interesting to see.
yeah. So selection. Okay, so I'm just gonna write down a quick bullet point of information we'd want to get in a completed selection algorithm. So we'd want to, like, okay, what is the ETH address that is obviously identified here? What IP address are we working with? What criteria have we won on? Right?
Yeah, what the
I mean,
criteria you matched on. Like, again, there's stake, there's latency, and then there's the randomness. Like, which one of those hit you?
Yeah.
And then also, like, maybe also, if possible, and this might be a nice to have more than a requirement, would be how many participants were in that selection, right? Like, you were part of it, but how many others?
Oh,
I know that
interesting.
I know that information is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that information exists.
Selection group.
Because remember, in a given region, you're never going to see all 100. And when my broadcaster fires up, every time I look at the broadcaster, there's a whole bunch of orcs that fail immediately because they're not transcoding. So, like, you eliminate a lot of orcs right away on the initial connection and the pinging, but then the stream selection, it takes that subset and also does some filtering and sorting and whatnot. So I think, just knowing how small the pool of selection was, right? Like, when you actually got chosen, if it was 2 or 3 people, like, that'd be crazy. But again, that may explain why you don't get streams, right?
Well, it's changed now, because it used to be where it was limited to, I think, 8 that were selected and eligible for the work. But now I think they do it as long as you respond within, what is it, like 500 milliseconds or something like that, then you're eligible.
So,
but again, that's the criteria, right? That's the stuff we're
Right.
talking about. We want to see what was the
Right. But
metric and what was your value, what was other people's value, right? Like,
But it
that'd be
would be
ideal.
nice if we could get like the actual number that were eligible from the initial selection. How many people or how many orchestrators were eligible for the stream?
Well, remember, in the code, it's just a list of entries. So, like, you're in a list of 100, and then there's a whole, like, I always call it, like, gold, panning for gold, right? Like, they filter out, like the orcs go through like a sifting process where each layer of criteria will sort out, filter out a certain amount of people, and at the very end, gold nuggets drop out. One person gets a stream, right? Like if you think of it like that in a panning process, it always starts with the active 100, and then some of the criteria is going to filter it out until finally you're left with just one choice, and that's the selection algorithm.
Oh,
So
well, you know what?
anywhere there's filtering, we want to look at that. Go ahead.
That actually brings up a good point, because there's also, I'm assuming it still has what used to at least be called the working group, where there were like, in a sense, like 8 that were selected for a job. So like if one orchestrator started performing like, over real time, then it would automatically switch to another orchestrator that had already been selected as part of that. I believe it was called a working group.
Right. So instead of filtering out one, they drop out a pool. So you get like 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 or whatever the number is, and then that way they can take one and then start picking from that trusted pool.
Right, and switching over to it easily, fast, without having to go through the entire
Without having to
section
go through the
again.
whole filtering again.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that would be an interesting piece of information, is like who was put into that pool, that not just selected for the actual stream, but who was, I guess.
Do we want to know just the size, or who is in the pool, like an actual list of addresses?
Well, remember, it depends on the list, right? Like we don't want to print out every stream, every pool of people. Like that's just going to be a lot. But like we said, the selection was, okay, Papa Bear got selected, right? Here's his criteria. And then like there could be 5 others. You were sort of one of 5 in the pool or something, like for one of 5 selected. You know what I mean? Something that shows that it was you and 5 others. Maybe you won't know, but like, again, if you're looking at the same segment and you see you got chosen, and then another segment later you saw someone else got chosen, I think it's pretty good to say that you 2 of the people in that pool, right?
So, so what I've gotten written down here. Here's one type of log: a successful selection, right? So we want to know the ETH address, the manifest ID, what IP address was chosen, what criteria made them get chosen, and what the selection group size was, or what the current selection working group is. The size working. I think it's called working group. No, it's called like a
Working set.
Working,
I don't know. We're just trying to come up
working
with some
set
name.
size. There we go. Working set size. What other information would you want? Are we able to determine whether this is a VOD or a live stream?
No,
I don't think we
we're
are.
looking at a
The way
segment
they're
by
sent.
segment. It could be either one at that point.
Yeah, but but the selection algorithm doesn't happen every segment. It just
every stream manifest that comes in will be, but again, at that point, a manifest would represent anything.
Yes, stream versus segment is, I think, the point that Titan's making, right? Titan.
Yeah, but either way, neither we know whether it came in on VOD or not.
Yeah,
because it's just a playlist that needs to be transcoded at that point, or source input.
Mm-hmm. And then so that's what we got so far. We can always add more metrics. So I'm gonna post this in chat just to like here's one example.
Look, if we only get one useful metrics, that's far better than where we are today. So like this little subset of stuff we talked about should be a lot to get us going on our first iteration.
Of course, right? And then then a stream rejection, right? So at this point, I guess we'd want something like ETH address, the manifest ID again, what IP address, and then what reason, right? So was it ended by the streamer? Was it ended because you timed out? Like the orchestrator?
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a set of criteria that you match or don't match. And if you get selected, we want the criteria, right? And if you get kicked out or rejected, we want the criteria. So I think just being able to capture the same criteria, either you were selected.
I think, I hate to keep doing this, but I think, Titan, what you were saying is, like, once you have a stream and it ends, Did you reach the end of the stream, or did you
Oh, I see what you're
go too,
saying.
or did you
It was
lose
a
real
clean
time?
end, or you failed somewhere along the line, and someone else picked up your stream for you.
Right, and I don't know how that gets logged.
Well, I believe it keeps
There's
the
something.
same. I believe it keeps the same manifest ID, and then it goes through the selection process within the working set, and then it kicks you. So,
So you'd have to do some
Yeah, we
filter.
should. When you are taking a stream and then you fail for some reason, and then it goes back to the top and reselects, that failure point is where you really want to get that extra lines of logging in there, where you can say, why did I get kicked out? Or if I'm normally selecting and the stream didn't end normally, why did I get taken out of selection? Like that, you definitely want to know.
like literally, if we just started with the selection stuff and the rejection stuff, we're off to like an incredible log with like tons of information that we can like.
You'll get 80% of the value out of
Yeah.
that versus anything else. And then the last effort is going to get very little value out of, but this will be massive in terms of insight.
Yeah. Like literally yeah. So I just wonder, if we as a community can go through and now start commenting out where these things happen, at least we then we can go, okay, we can insert this log here, it happened for this reason, or because to reduce the amount of lines, you could say, well, the reason we'll set up a variable as like, hey, this is, it hit the random selection part, so the variable will be set as random selection, and then when it goes to print, it'll print out that reason, right? So then we're not printing out 5 logs for something that is repeating, like Mike was saying.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the part where I don't think that Livepeer Inc. wanted to build this out, because they just don't know what's important to us. They don't know what we want to know as much as we want to know, if that makes sense. But
Yeah,
Tom
I figured that craziness out. I got you.
Tom seems to be definitely willing to build the method that we can call, and that's it. If we can just build, if he wants to build the method, host the files, and build a low-key, I guess, instance on top of that, however you want to call it, then we can just go in and start calling this method in areas we care about. And, I think this is going to be really powerful. And then from a broadcaster side, it's just a flag they're adding, so it'll just be a flag output on where they want this to be uploaded. So for other people that want to run a broadcaster node, they don't have to use this flag, right? They don't have to partake in this due to it being maybe too complicated, especially if you're spinning one up. But anyway, that's the idea behind it. Mike, if there's a time that you see fit that you would like to do a office hours over this, I'd be more than happy to create the event. I don't know if you can create events, but I'd be more than happy to create
I cannot.
I'd be more than happy to create the event for you and publish it and just get people involved, and then you can just do like a screen share and we can all kind of follow along.
Well, I have some time this week for sure, so we could definitely look to do something this week. But I would encourage you to reach out to Elite. If he has some capacity, we could probably leverage him, and maybe I can do some work to show some of the Loki stuff. That we could all come to an agreement there. But I'll be more than willing to walk through the code, and we can talk about it and comment and add stuff to the pull request right away. But I think he could actually like put some breakpoints in the code at certain spots we find and then run it, you know what I mean, while we're there and look, okay, what metrics are here? Oh, okay, we have this, we have that data. We could actually add some real detail in there that makes the code changes a lot easier. Because when I did it, there were some areas where like you'll see like the same kind of logic. So like you were saying, well, if you get rejected, there's a bit of logic it does, and then it does reselection again, right? But it looks like the same spot in one piece of code, and then you look at another area and it has similar logic. So like just being able to stop the code at the exact spots and be able to say, ooh, right here at this line, we know this is the first time when a stream comes in, or this is when the ping process runs, and those are probably good markers to have in the log. So if he can come, get him on board. If not, then we can just do, just straight up code, looking at code and commenting. I think either way it'll be useful.
Cool. I'll reach out to Elite. He might be busy, but maybe I'll just CC him and add you, and we'll just have a chat with this and orchestrating and just see when he's free. Do you want to come up with a time you're free and then invite him to it and then see if he can make it?
Yeah, I'll kick it with him on the side because again, maybe he doesn't have time. Maybe he can just show me how to debug and I can do it myself. But in any event, I will reach out with you with the time, and then if I can or we can rope in Elite, great. If not, we'll just go.
He's usually available evening times, Eastern time. So
okay.
Yeah, so he's I've like debugged with him from like 7 p.m. till 3 a.m. Eastern time. So we've done that. So yeah, he's quite widely available. I think he finishes work at like 5 or something. So
nice.
So I don't know if that fits into your schedule at all, but
yeah. I'll
like
work something out. I mean, again, in any event, we'll record it. And if we have to do a second one, we can do another one with Elite, and we can record that as well. So I think we can definitely get some content ready for folks to join in.
He's just got a really nice breakpoint. Yeah, it's just like you just hit play and away you go. So it's pretty quick. You just send him a stream and he starts messing around. So he's got.
Yeah, I can do that in most languages. I just never really learned Go like that. So he's dialed Go in a development environment. And I need to get there. That's the level I need to get to. I'm just not there yet.
Okay. Well, this might be a good opportunity. So, but yeah, shoot me up with a time or a date, and I will reach out to him, and if we can get him to join us, great. Brad is also a wealth of knowledge with Go, so maybe if we create an event, it means more. So I think people will carve out the time to do it if there's an actual event. So.
Yeah, no doubt. We did a Plutus event last week for Video Miner with Doug, and we, it wasn't really official, but we were in office hours doing stuff. So, but yeah, an event, it gives people a chance to plan around it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so on list of things to do, let's do like a office hours broadcaster introspection log, yeah, something like that. Cool. And yeah, cool. Oh, that's exciting. I'm very, very excited for this update because I think this will help a lot of orchestrators, which would be very important for the network, the health of the network. Okay, we do have some people that have been coming and going during this whole topic, so let's just do a couple more introductions. I don't know, Mike, did you introduce yourself yet? Might as well do it for the YouTubers watching this and the lens tubers.
I did not introduce myself, but I will now. Mike Zuper. I am the Zodap XYZ operator since February of 22, or actually maybe, February. No, not February. That was when Arbitrum. So I think maybe in January or December of 21 or 22, somewhere around there. Anyway, a little over a year. Working on all kinds of crazy stuff for this group and just love to be involved and help out. So a lot of stuff in Kubernetes, a lot of stuff in Docker, a lot of stuff Portainer, Grafana, Prometheus, anything. So if you guys need help, just hit me up. I'm always in the Discord, always ready. As far as topics, no topics today, I don't think.
Cool. Love it. Thank you for joining us, Mike. Varies, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, I'm running the Whereisnumbers.eth orchestrator since more than 4 years now, and I also don't have a specific topic.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us. And Flo, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hi everyone, I'm Flo from Mouse Computing. I'm an orchestrator since 7 months. I don't have any topic for this week. Just say thanks to Mike to help me for debugging few things on my orchestrator.
Hey man, no worries.
Very good. I like it. I like it a lot. And we are on Xenon right now, and I got 2 new subscribers, 420 credits, donation. Oh, very cool. Thank you. Shout out to Lord Waffle and a couple other people. Troy, found none. Very good. Yeah, anyway, just been streaming on Xenon, so. And Xenon now is integrated a couple features with the lens, so pretty bullish on that. Very exciting. Which, by the way, for the people, the Xenon guys, make it so that my videos, when I upload them, they just get posted directly to Lens. I don't want to have to like copy post. This defeats the point. I just want everything I upload to Xenon just to like automatically go to Lens, right? Also, my subscribers, I want them to be from Lens as well. So like merge them with your database or something. I want 2,000 subscribers on my profile immediately, because that's how I've got it on Lens. So just keep going with the Lens stuff. I like it. Okay, cool. Let's keep going down the topic. I don't know, Pablo, you are in the audience. I don't know if you want to talk about your topics a little bit. Oh, you might. Yeah, you might have left and come back. I forgot that you can't invite yourself up to speak. Sorry about that. Your topics were around AV1 discussion and the updated live stream for Avae. I think it was Avae. Do you want to talk a little bit about those topics?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I had to jump on a call, so I missed the AV1 discussion. But no, I just wanted to mention that yesterday we did a stream for Rave, so the party that Avae and Lens throw in some Ethereum events. And so we live streamed that through Rad Radio, which is kind of a bootstrap project I'm running with some people from Berlin. And so yeah, I'm happy Xenon is integrating with Lens. We are also integrating with them for this project. And so yesterday, yeah, we live streamed the whole party. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rave, but it was pretty fun. We got quite a few views. It was interesting. I don't know. Maybe did anyone see it in Twitter?
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit, and I mirrored it on Lens so that other people could follow or watch. So yeah, it was very interesting. I really liked the artwork in the landing page before the stream started. It was like pretty cool. So
Yeah, it's cool.
I watched a bit, but I didn't watch very much. Honestly, I was kind of busy with visiting and family and stuff. So I watched it on my phone for like 5 minutes, and then the problem was, yeah, like they were just DJing, and I was like, yeah, if I was at my computer with my secondary screen, yeah, I might have had it up, but I was a little preoccupied, so I didn't watch much of it.
Yeah. We had a small watch party here, so we just put the stream in the background, and we were having dinner alongside it. But yeah, it's a small little project we're running. So we're trying to have different DJs coming and do their sets, and so we live stream that through Rad Radio, and so Radical Protocol is also involved. So we have this plugin where people can donate directly to the DJs through the website. And then people can also follow their profiles on Lens. And so after the stream is done, we upload the post-production, the post-produced videos, and then people can collect these videos in Lens. So we're also kind of like heavily leaning into the Lens ecosystem for like distribution of social, right? I think it's the way to go right now. Yeah, I just wanted to share that, and yeah, it's cool.
So if I go to that that link, will I be able to collect it right now, or is it already over?
Not yet. So we have to still like post-produce the videos. So do some like editing on the actual live stream.
Right.
And we will upload them, I think, by the end of the week, and then you can collect it.
Cool.
I'll let you know when it's up. Yeah.
I got my collect button ready.
Cool.
Let's start.
Yeah.
Mashing that collect button. Cool. Dude, yeah. Like I'm upset that Lens is still in their closed beta, but like I'm super excited for its for what it is and how people are building on it. And I think they got it right on a lot of levels, which I'm really excited about. So keep building on it. Yeah, it's very, very good. Also,
we're actually sorry, just one more thing. We're actually now thinking to work with the Lens team to integrate or support more like support HLS playback directly from Lens. So right now Lens actually doesn't support live streaming content, and we're trying to see if we can like help them integrate HLS post type, right?
yeah,
Which would be that would be awesome.
Yeah, you try to do with the embed type, the embedded content, but that's pretty limiting. So
yeah,
if you actually had an HLS, then it would be mobile friendly. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really impressive to have a mobile friendly endpoint for live content, which would make sense. I mean, like if you're scrolling through Facebook, there's just random live streams happening and it's in your feed and it's on your phone. And so that's a pretty natural progression to make sure that you can make Lens posts live stream friendly, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that it would probably drive a lot of demand for the Livepeer network. Since there's a bunch of content creators on Lens, there's also a lot of clients. So applications, right, building on Lens. So if these applications support creating a live stream easily, right, then we can see maybe a big uptick in demand for the network. So yeah, probably a great idea to do this.
Yeah, I don't like it. I love it. It's incredible.
Yep.
One last thing, Troy on Xenon, big shout out for your saved chat. It's nice that I can go leave the stream, come back, and the chat is there since the beginning of the stream. I can read back. So big shout out to that upgrade. And Troy also says we are working on integrations like that. I'm assuming he's talking about the subscribers and the Lens integration into the website. So yeah, I think doubling down on the Lens social side of things. Lens I think is starting to get a pretty good. The ball is rolling, so to speak. So yeah, keep building. Love it. Cool. Any other updates with that stream or with that Avae stuff going on? Or the AV1 conversation even, Pablo, if you want to continue on with that.
No. Nothing else on my side. Like I said, the AV1, I kind of like lost track of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Very good. The general consensus around AV1 is it's happening, it's coming, and Livepeer should be adopting it as soon as possible. So, yeah, we just need to get that on the. I think it's on the roadmap. Is it not? like on the canny thing, like the board of things that are happening. Could be wrong.
No idea about this.
And if it's not, can someone please post that like right now? That should be a suggestion.
Too many places now to post stuff between the forum, the Discord, the Canny, the GitHub. Like, where hard to keep track of what's where. Feature requests, Canny. Let's see.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
I'm not going to read it out loud while we're all sitting here.
yeah, of course. I'll let you skim read it and see if it's on there. Cool. All right. We'll move on to the next topic, which was public goods funding. So for those who missed it last week and the week before, basically 2 water coolers an hour, or the 2 water coolers in a row now, where we've talked extensively about the public's good funding. Basically, I believe DOB just tweeted today, or maybe here, let me look it up. Basically, yeah, there's lots of development going on there. I believe it's 100% like moving through. Yeah, so 4 hours ago, Doug tweeted, the Livepeer community has actively discussed the proposal and into a community governed treasury. Blah blah blah. Talks about what it is. Obviously, this is a bit of a post, so we already know a little bit about it. Does anyone have any follow up? I made a post on the forum with some like my 2 cents and kind of the funding rate at 1%, 5%, and 15% of the orchestrator inflation going to the treasury, and kind of some numbers on what they would be worth. Does anyone have any feedback on those numbers or on the public's good funding idea in general?
Well, maybe I can say something. I'm kind of like just learning about this. But yeah, of course, I think it's an awesome idea. I think the token, the economics of the token really supports this use case, right? I'm not really sure about. Well, so what I can understand of how this is gonna work, right? Orchestrators are basically gonna donate a percentage of their like inflationary reward back to a shared pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So out of all the inflationary tokens
Yeah.
that go to orchestrators and delegators, obviously, a percentage of that will get pooled into a decentralized treasury.
Yeah, I think it totally makes sense. I've been speaking with the Optimism guys lately, because I'm here in Montenegro with a bunch of like Ethereum people,
Oh, very
and
cool.
the Optimism guys, yeah, the Optimism guys were here, and so they were discussing about the retro PGF mechanisms, and the biggest problems they're having is like, how do you have consensus around the distribution of the funding?
Mm.
So right now they have a voting system, but it's not really. So they have issues with civil resistance and really allocating capital efficiently to those projects that have an impact. Because in some cases, some projects are just being voted on due to like community inertia, let's say, right? So it's very hard to evaluate, right, who is worthy of receiving the funding. And so I'm interested to see how we solve that, right, as a Livepeer community. I don't know what is currently proposed. I think there's like a DAO, like people are speaking about DAOs and so that like DAO governance kind of approach. But I don't know what your takes are on that. I don't know if I made myself clear. But
yeah, well, so there's a forum thread. I don't know if you've read the forum thread. Are you familiar with the forum thread?
no, I didn't have time yet.
You have what? Sorry.
I didn't have time to read it yet.
Yeah. So obviously, not only is the original post quite long, All the replies are even longer, so there's a lot to go through if you care to, but I'll summarize it as best as I can. Basically, we agree for the most part. The treasury that does public funding is probably a good idea. There's some debate on where this money will come from and the fairness of it, but based on, I would say, most people, the consensus is, yeah, we should not increase the inflation of Livepeer because that has a really bad sentiment among like public opinion. So it should probably come out of the current inflation, which may it provides less LPT to stakeholders, but it will probably still benefit them more because we're redistributing them into the things that are publicly good for the network, and so increases the value of the network, blah, 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 right? So I think we've come to the consensus that we're probably going to take a percentage of the current inflation. And the second conversation was around this idea exactly of how do we vote? So right now, there is no good proposal on how we would sustain kind of a Sybil attack, or how we would defend ourselves against whales essentially just sending themselves money. So yeah, right now the idea is just around this 1-to-1 vote based on the amount of LPT you own. So yeah, a whale could easily, and so because the treasury is on chain, the money gets distributed on chain, so there is no DAO to manage this money. It was just going to be like a on chain vote, and so the smart contract would automatically release the funds based on the on chain vote. So, and the current voting mechanism is just a 1-to-1, so a whale has a lot more influence. Orchestrators also have a lot of influence because we have stake that's delegated to us, and delegators don't always check updates or care to override our votes. So yeah, there's an interesting conversation around how do we go ahead with voting. But I think currently the idea is, out of simplicity, we should just stick with our 1-to-1 vote. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What do you guys think about attestations? So having a way to track contributions, right? Community contributions or builder contributions to Livepeer, and then base distribution of the pool to on this on this attestation list. If that makes sense.
Right.
Kind of like Optimism did it with the attestation station.
Oh, is that what they went with?
I think that's where they're trying to move towards. Yeah, I think they tried it with the attestation station, but they're also now doing hypercerts, which they're like some kind of NFTs that you can mint to yourself, and people can attest to it. And so these NFTs represent kind of, or explain what you did, what contribution you did to a certain ecosystem, right? So yeah, it's kind of a way to validate that you did something, both from the on-chain perspective because you're minting this NFT, but also from the network, the social network perspective, because people are kind of saying, yeah, you actually did that, right?
Yeah, I haven't been following it that closely, because it seems like an insanely difficult problem, because doesn't that still run into the same Sybil attack where whales can basically attest to themselves or stuff like this? I don't know.
Yeah, but I guess people that attest to you also have attestations to themselves. So you kind of like, you are creating a proof of humanity, or you're building some sort of proof of humanity into the people that are attesting, right? I mean, it's way more complex than this, but that's kind of so everything is based off social networks, right? So other people are verifying that you're real, and other people verifying that the other people are real, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
I don't know.
I think that's really important for a decentralized like layer 2 or like some sort of like protocol where there's no direct revenue going to stakeholders. Like, I don't know, Livepeer, we already have this inflation mechanism, so like the more you participate in the network, which is you delegating, the more you earn percentage in the network, and so therefore you're growing influence just by participating. And the people that are hodling that aren't participating are losing their participation, and so over time it'll equalize, hopefully, to people that contribute over the people that don't contribute, and then therefore a token weighted state voting mechanism should theoretically work. And then because the amount of ETH you get is relative to the amount of stake you have, you are incentivized to make sure you pick good projects that make the company, or not the company, but the protocol work better. And so I'm not certain that something like a work token protocol like Livepeer has the same challenges as something like a layer 2, like Optimism. I think Optimism's challenge is significantly harder than something like our protocol.
But the problem with that is that you're only rewarding the orchestrators, right? And then the orchestrators have all the leverage when deciding who to support, like which consumer apps to support, right? So right now, consumer apps, like the ones like Sheena or what I'm building and other people are building, basically have no stake in the network, even though these consumer apps are what is driving traffic to the orchestrators, right? So it's right now it's like fairly unbalanced, the distribution of stake, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, then there was the other conversation of somehow consumer apps should be able to stake to their own broadcaster node and then earn inflation. There's been conversations around that, but I think that's a tough one as well. But if you've got good ideas, I'd highly recommend hopping into the forum and sharing them with us. I think you would get a lot of feedback and like a lot of kudos for just coming in and providing a wealth of introspection. Seeing as you're already in Montenegro, I mean that's like the pinnacle right now of conversation around this. So I would encourage you to comment on the forum post. I put it in the water cooler chat here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I have to get involved, sir. I didn't have time yet, but
Yeah.
I will for sure. Yeah.
Again, there's lots of
No,
conversation, so you don't have to read
yeah,
it
yeah,
all.
yeah. I think it's a really great initiative, and like from an ethos perspective, Livepeer doing this is like super good, right? So yeah, I just got very excited
Yeah.
when I saw the post on Twitter.
Well, the nice thing is, so I don't know if you're familiar with how it's going to work with the tier 1 and tier 2 systems. Are you familiar with how we're building ours out?
Not really, no.
So the tier 1, so it's called the tier 1 treasury, is going to be the decentralized treasury that receives the tokens, and the tier 1 is be going to be voting, stake weighted voting, if you will. That's currently the setup, but like obviously that can change. But so that's the tier 1. The tier 2s are going to be where the money goes to, and the funds are going to be sent to like DAOs or organizations, which then would distribute them to the end user apps or developers who need the funding, right? So, for instance, there would be a community Livepeer app building DAO, right? And this app building DAO would be in charge of funding new projects built on Livepeer. So that would be the tier 2, and that would apply for funding from the tier 1. So the tier 1 would pay out, $200,000 worth of LPT to the DAO, and then the DAO would accept, applicants and go through its process of like dealing, actually like doing the work of whitelisting these apps or whatever, right? And so the tier 2s would be different, have different mandates. Some would be based on like app developers, some would be tool developers, some would be like marketing stuff, So that is kind of, I don't know if you disconnected or whatever, but that's kind of how it was going to work. Whereas I don't know how they're planning on doing it in Optimism. I'm curious. Curious what they're doing over there.
Yeah, that makes sense. The tier 1, tier 2. Yeah, I'm not sure they're gonna launch the third Retro PDF round now. So maybe it would be interesting to get the guy that's organizing it from Optimism to give us some feedback on the design. That could be good. Maybe, but yeah. By the way, if you guys are interested, we're live streaming all the Montenegro content through Livepeer as well.
Drop links, man. Drop links.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Cool.
And yeah, thanks for explaining. Very insightful.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think it's good. It's a good initiative, and yeah, we just got to figure out what the percentage cut will be, and then the voting process behind it. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, Optimism has a totally different set of tokenomics than Livepeer, so I suspect it's just going to be different. Because Optimism, do they have a token right now? I know Arbitrum does, but I don't think Optimism does.
Yeah, they do.
They have the OP.
Oh, right.
The OP token.
The OP token, right. Is it inflationary or is it just static?
I think inflationary.
Yeah.
And it's based on staking?
They
don't think so. It's just it's different. I don't think you can stack this one.
Right. It's just a voting token.
Yeah, voting and for distribution.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, this is the big question right now is Livepeer on the forefront of coming up with design decisions, or is it going to hang back and watch what other people do and then try and pick the best one, right? It's kind of two options we have going forward. But it seems as though Doug and the group usually are pretty forefront in like paving the way. So it doesn't surprise me that they want to have this conversation. So, Pablo, like I said, if you have any good ideas, please feel free to drop them, and don't worry about reading every little detail. If you just want to start off with at the end of the thread, I think I have an idea for voting instead of a 1-to-1 stake weighted vote. I propose, and go into whatever you want, and it would make sense for the rest of the thread. Just FYI.
Yeah, will do.
Cool. All right. Any other comments, questions, or opinions on the public's good funding that anyone wants to bring up? Don't be shy. If you want to share your thoughts, please do. All right. I can see we have a very active crowd today. You know that the bear market is here because we don't have people screaming in the chat and things about the LPT price and how this is going to affect price. So it's very good. All right. What else?
I mean, if I can say something about the price, I think if anything, this is gonna really drive or support builders. So the more builders you have, the more applications. So ultimately, the more demand for the network. So I only see positive outcomes for this program, honestly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, also your opinion on what percentage would be helpful. I put out a little thing of like 1%, 5%, 15%. Does anyone have an opinion on what percentage we should be using? Doug originally kind of quoted 15%. This seems pretty steep, and that's quite a bit of money, even at $5 LPT. Are orchestrators willing to take a 15% cut for this program?
Maybe, yeah.
I think most would say they probably would prefer less, but yeah, I don't want to speak for everyone. And
Well,
I mean, as
speak
far
for
as like
yourself and your delegators.
I was gonna say, well, is in regards to like what I think would be the right percent, that's where I just get really stuck because I have no idea what what kind of funding we're looking to give out here. So it makes it really difficult to come up with that. Just from my perspective, that's why I get kind of quiet when it comes to that. I don't know how to even estimate what what kind of money we're looking for. What kind of or at least dollar value, or translated into dollars.
So it varies. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, like Papa Bear said, it's just difficult to estimate. I mean, like some basic calculations, if we take the current mintable tokens and then we multiply it by the price, I think at 15% that would put us around $2 million per year for the treasury, which seems to be quite a lot considering comparing it to the grants program. I think that was much less, and I'm not sure if it was even like exhausted, like the budget of the grant program. So I just don't want to end up in a situation where like there's tons of LPT in the treasury, but like no way to efficiently use it.
So yeah, I think that's super interesting, and so the key question is like, I think the V2PGF program is aiming to maintain builders in a more long-term scenario than just the grant program. So the grant program is kind of kickstarting projects, right? And giving one-off grants. But for this program, you're looking at sustaining, a project more in the long term. And so in the orchestrator's case, right, you guys are playing the VC, not really the VC role, but you guys have to consider that if you invest this $2 million into applications that they're not gonna like drive traffic to the network, you might be looking at increasing revenue from transcoding by a factor of whichever X, right? So you might be losing 50% on inflationary rewards, but you might be increasing your transcoding rewards by a lot, right? So I think that's the real question is, how do you allocate this capital efficiently to projects that are actually having an impact with their consumer applications, right? So that's kind of the whole key question. Because I think the grants program is right now is very centralized. So a few people are making decisions on what projects should receive the funding. But this now is like moving the discussion to the whole community, right? And so now you guys, the orchestrators, have to actually understand the value add of these applications and start asking the questions like, is this application bringing value to the ecosystem? Is it going to drive demand for the network? And if so, okay, let's invest money into it with the hopes that, because like I said, we can increase our transcoding fees or transcoding revenue by a factor of whatever, right? Because I'm guessing that you orchestrators, and this is a question I have, like you guys as orchestrators want to earn more from transcoding fees than from inflationary rewards in the long term, right? Is that the case?
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of the network is to for the bulk of the fees to come from transcoding fees down the road. But yes, I mean, I think that was the initial concept behind just the way everything works with Livepeer. And I mean, I would be happy if that was the case. But again, I just have no idea what what it costs to build out all the stuff that would take, to hopefully get there. So that's where I come to that. Again, very difficult for me to decide or to figure out what would be the right percentage or a fair percentage to allocate towards the new proposal.
Yeah, so my opinion on this is something like 1%. So you're there's only one thing that's true, and the true thing is you're probably not going to get the percentage right. Right? It's like budgeting something. Like the budget's wrong 100% of the time. It's just how wrong can it be? Is kind of the degree of trying to analyze that, right? And so I can probably safely say something like 1% is on the low side and 15% is on the high side, right? Because, well,
I'll agree with that.
right? So, okay, so these are probably the closest things we have to facts or estimates that we have. Is 1% is low and 15% is high. So somewhere between 1 and 15%, we have a pretty good number, right? And so there's, I guess, two approaches to go about this. Do you want to start on the low side and make votes to increase it as we start seeing success in it? Or do we want to start on the high side and overspend on probably on overvalued things, but you will probably get to where you want to go maybe a little faster because you're just spending more money, so it has more incentives for people to come in and do things. And so are we conservative or are we trying to move fast as a protocol? And based on those two criteria, you could maybe decipher between 1 and 15%, right? So yeah, if I was a government, or a municipality, I would be very conservative. I want to see that something works before I put any taxpayers' money behind it because taxpayers get very angry. So I would,
Oh, you don't live in California where they just go 100%, boom, done, over.
Right. Okay. So so then how I would do it is start at 1% if I was a mayor of a town, and if I was running a startup with VC capital and a burn rate, and I have a limited amount of time to get product market fit, and there's a bull wave coming probably in 2 to 4 years that I could kind of guesstimate. Maybe I would want to be on the 15% side and say, listen, there's not much time to make a big splash. Let's do it. Let's overspend on overvalued projects, but hey, at least we're spending. We might get more adoption that way, right? So where do we see ourselves? What do we want to prioritize?
Yeah, I think ultimately the formula of throwing money to things and hoping they grow is usually it works out. You're gonna lose a lot of money along the way, right? Because there's a lot of like bullshit projects that are just good at marketing and don't add any value. And again, that's where I'm like trying to emphasize is how good are we at analyzing the value add and allocating capital efficiently to these projects, right? And so, yeah, I think the key point here. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to say to that point, that's where I tend to prefer to be on the conservative side and be selective with the projects that get picked, because when there's more money to spend, people tend to be less selective, and I feel like there's more waste and more potential for abuse.
Yeah,
so just,
exactly. Exactly, but I think it's also.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, but you're totally right. Yeah, I think it's about designing a framework in which we can really evaluate, where do we allocate capital. And so having a framework that one is flexible in allowing us to go from like the 1% to the 15%, because I think we're probably going to end up in a middle ground, right, between 1 and 15, so probably something like 7 or whatever. And then we have to be able to adjust on the fly and see, okay, if the project is successful, right, the Retail PGF project is successful, then we can start allocating more capital to it because everyone is winning, right? But
yeah, I mean, that's my way of thinking too, is that like if you're proven and you're performing, then I'm more willing to to obviously give more money to that project and to take a cut on my side, as a result of the money comes out of the general fund. So but yeah, I that makes sense to me personally. I mean, I agree with those that way of thinking.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? So you guys are taking the risk first. So you're front running the risk by putting all this capital up for grabs, and then hoping that projects come along and use it effectively. So yeah, it's definitely a difficult question.
Yeah.
And I also feel like since it's new, I prefer it to like start off small and grow if it, if it's working, and there's, some learning curve and probably, just
and we
hashing out how it all works.
We can change like once we get the treasury set up, and once we have a foundation of DAOs that are tier 2 DAOs that want to distribute the money. Like Pablo, if you wanna join or create a DAO or be on a DAO or work on a DAO with, me and other people in this community to give money to app builders, like we can create that tier 2 DAO, and we can use tools to vet projects, and we can apply for tier 1 funding, and the treasury would vote and give us the tokens, and then we can go ahead with that, right? If that's something you'd be interested in being a part of, right? Distributing those funds as a tier 2 group, right? So then, but what's nice is once we have the tier 1 treasury set up, smart contract wise, and once we have maybe a set of tier 2 DAOs that have applied or have some sort of formula or basis around how they're going to distribute this money, changing the percentage of the treasury, it can be done pretty quickly. Like I don't even know how much of an LIP you would have to publish. You could probably just put an on-chain vote and say, "Hey, let's increase the DAO, the treasury from 5% to 10%." We see lots of demand, and that can be done pretty quick, right? So the nice thing is the number that we choose to start with doesn't have to be the number we have to stay with. So that's a positive. Like this is not set in stone. So therefore, and because if you pick a lower number, like a conservative number, it takes a while for that money to build up in the treasury. So, you probably want to start with a higher number so that we can, based on the hype of the release of this DAO, you can get people that want to be involved in it. Like in the first quarter that the treasury releases, you're going to want to be distributing maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars and really getting the excitement going. Whereas if you only start with 1%, it takes a quarter, it takes 3 months to accumulate $15,000 to give away. It's like that might not be right incentive enough. So, or maybe it's some sort of like adjusting percentage based on how much money is in the treasury. Maybe we say, hey, the treasury should be kind of sitting around 100,000 LPT. So the closer it gets to 100,000 LPT, the less inflation it receives. And so therefore, it never gets this giant chunk of LPT that just sits there dormant. But when it spends the money, it refills quicker, right? So maybe there's some sort of
I don't
like,
like the way inflation works now with the 50%. I mean, not exactly the same, but when it's under, when it's, when you're below the whatever the designated amount is, the inflation's higher. If you're
right,
above it, then it's less.
like some sort of like
Um,
quadratic funding of percentages, like where it increases or decreases the closer you get to the treasury cap, and then you can say, well, the treasury really doesn't deserve to have 20 or what is Aragon's treasury have? They have 200 million in the DAO, and it's like, okay, is that too much, or is that like what are you doing with this, right? And they're doing grants at like $50,000 at a time. Like it doesn't really make sense for the amount of money they have. So maybe we do this thing where we say the treasury is allowed to have a certain amount, and the closer you get to it, the less inflation it gets, right? So and then that could be an option, right?
I mean, I just have a question regarding the tier 2 DAOs. What's the incentives for the DAOs, right? Because you're adding kind of like a middleman for the distribution. Are they gonna retain capital for themselves as well, or are they just doing it for free, basically?
Pretty sure they're just doing it for high fives.
Yeah. So I think
I thought
we should probably
the goal
have
was
some.
so that you break it down into like groups that have like specialized knowledge for what they're funding.
Yeah, but you still need some kind of incentives for that, right? Because they're basically doing the VC role, which takes a lot of time. Like you have to do due diligence, you have to understand the field you're investing in, you have to talk to these projects, and that's a lot of work, right? So, and that's kind of like the crucial point that I was trying to point out that we need to focus on is having this like people curate the projects and allocate capital efficiently. So if you have no incentives for them, then I think it's like game theoretically it's never going to work out.
Then you end up with the community node that we have today, where it takes 3 months to get an approval for like a small project because there's really no incentive for like them to get together and timely handle requests, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of the community node, does that money roll into this project, whatever's in there now?
So the community node, the idea behind the community node is it would get the actual orchestrator node would get shut down, and the community node would convert into a tier 2 DAO and would request funding from the tier 1 treasury. And therefore then it competes with other DAOs or whatever, other entities that might do it better than the community node, right? And so, as the treasury, we might go, you know what, we don't actually like the effectiveness of this entity, and so we're going to fund this one instead, right? But the idea behind the community node is it would actually give up its orchestrator spot to someone who's actually doing work, and it would just convert into a tier 2 DAO.
Yeah, and actually, I actually misspoke. I was really, I guess, like the money, like, so does grants program, does that get its money from the community node? Is that how that works
Yes.
currently?
Yeah. It's got
So,
a 50% reward cut.
and is that their budget then to work within that 50%? Or like, how do they, like, do they have a budget? Do we know, like, how that works?
Yeah. The community node spits off LPT and it accumulates and they give it away.
But do they have any requirements, like to keep a certain amount, on hand so that they can continue to get inflationary rewards, or I mean, can they spend it all? Or I'm just wondering, and like, if that's going to go away, does that then get put into this treasury, the LPT?
No, I think they would just spend it all until it's gone, and then if they didn't get more funding, they'd just close it down. But they
So
don't.
it would still
From
operate
what I
independent.
understood, I think they're just gonna push all the LPT to the treasury. From what I know,
Oh, is that right?
I think so. I mean, that would make sense, right? You kind of
Well,
deleting the.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it seems like to me. But it's been a while since I read this, and I did kind of read it fast. So I guess I don't know if I'll have to go back and read.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the current. I mean, the community grants node is great. It does a bunch of things. It funded me in a bunch of things, and I do appreciate them for that. So I don't have any issues with them, other than they're not very effective, and but it's what we have. So but whether they dissolve or whether they continue on, I don't know. But there's an opportunity for more community, grants nodes or grants programs to maybe apply for funding, right? And that comes in all
Yeah.
different forms and stuff.
Also, the problem with the current grants program is that most of the grants being supported right now are apps building on Livepeer Studio, right? Which is a very specific use case. So they're like the applications that build on Livepeer Studio are using the features developed for Studio, right? Which is ultimately a commercial application built on top of the protocol. So the grants program isn't really supporting all the people in the ecosystem, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Which yeah.
Yeah, we're sending them to a hosted gateway rather than building directly on the protocol.
But
Exactly.
it's not funding based on, like, that's not like a requirement. I just think that's just, for whatever reason, that's just what they've been funding because that's what's been applied for.
Well, it's because they're incentivized to do this, right? Because the people in the grants program are working for Livepeer Studio, most
for
of them,
Livepeer Inc.
right? So their incentive is to support their product, which makes total sense, right? And it's actually a fully functional product that uses Livepeer. But again, it comes back to that incentive for the DAOs, right? Like if the people involved in the DAOs have nothing to gain from distributing the funds effectively, right? It's never, like I said, it's never gonna work out, in my opinion. So we need to figure out a way to balance this, I would say. So maybe I write this down in the forum, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd love to see your write-up because you have a lot of good ideas. And you understand this stuff. It sounds like you've dealt with things like this, or at least been around a lot of people that have been talking about it, because this is all very new to me.
Yeah, I'm just learning about public goods funding. I think it's super interesting and really powerful, and we do have a great opportunity here to support everyone. So, yeah,
I like it. Well, please drop some alpha in the forum post, and we'd love to get some more feedback on these things. Cool. Okay. Any last comments on the public funding front?
From my side.
Very, very good. Cool. We've been at this for 2 hours, so yeah, I think we'll call it there. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming to this week's Water Cooler Chat, and I do appreciate your time, effort, and your willingness to show up every week and yeah, discuss on how to further the protocol, further decentralization and the Web3 movement. So do appreciate you being here, and we will see you all next week. Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone.
Adios.
Thanks all.